which we will be talking about history. First, you can see here beautiful ship from medieval world. It is a Viking ship from the late 8th century CE. Fierce warriors from Scandinavia terrorized coastal settlements across northern Europe. The Vikings attacked without warning, killing anyone who resisted them and carrying off treasure and slaves. The Vikings may have had a fearsome reputation, but they were more than just brutal riders. They were also very, very good shipbuilders. Their ships traveled quickly and safely across the roughest seas. They were bold explorers, reaching the Americas centuries before anyone else from Europe. They built settlements in Northern Europe, Iceland, and Greenland, where their culture influenced local life for centuries. Viking warriors traveled in longboats, fast, slick ships that could strike anywhere along coasts and rivers. They carried large square sails and oars for use when the wind was against them. Let us see some of the details on this Viking ship. At the front of Viking riding ships was a fierce monster head, perhaps representing a warlike spirit. These long boats had narrow hulls or bodies, and they sat high in the water, so that they could sail up shallow rivers to raid inland. But they also had a deep keel. can see here a beam striking out from the hull, and this deep keel kept the ship stable in rough seas. The keel was decorated with carvings many times. Large square sails on their ships were made out of woolen cloth. This material was so valuable that it was sometimes used as currency. Ropes on the ships were made from fibers that stayed strong when wet. They made them from horsehair, walrus hide, or a plant called hemp. A special extra long oar was attached to the back of the ship, and it acts as a rudder. The sail on a Viking ship could also be used for shelter. By hanging it across the beam that held the sail up and tying it to the sides of the boat, Vikings could turn the sail into tent to protect them from storms. Here we can see warriors' shields. They mounted their shields on the sides of the boat to protect the rovers and intimidate enemies. Oars, we can see here 16 of them, and each was about 15 feet or 4.5 meters long. Deck boards that we can see here had storage space underneath. And chests under the rovers containing rovers' belongings. Let me tell you something about their weapons. Here we can see axe and large bladed knife. Vikings were skilled at metalworking. Their weapons included broad axes that were swung with two hands and large bladed knives called saxes, which doubled as tools for everyday use. Here we can see also a double-edged long sword. So they have also long swords. Like metal armor, helmets were difficult to make and they were very expensive. Viking steel was hammered into plates, which were then riveted together with metal stripes. The helmet was then lined with cloth padding inside, and leather straps held it on the owner's head. As well as fierce warriors, the Vikings were bold explorers. From their homes in Scandinavia, Viking ships traveled the thousands of miles in every direction. They were the first Europeans to land in the Americas almost 500 years before Christopher Columbus. The remains of a Viking settlement have been found in Newfoundland, Canada. They also traveled widely across Europe, sailing or rowing around coasts and along rivers, and even carrying their ships over land when they could not continue by water. Second part of today's video will be about medieval fortresses. With towering stone walls, bristling with arrow slits, murder holes, and other defenses. Castles were a formidable obstacle to any medieval invader. Castles were built all across the world, ranging from simple wooden enclosures to vast stone palaces. A large number of castles and fortresses were built by wealthy lords in Europe who needed a place to keep their families and treasures safe from rivals while they were away at war. Now let us see details of this beautiful castle. This water circle around the castle is called moat. It is cut into the rock and often filled by diverting a nearby stream, and this moat kept attacking army away from the walls. Famous moat was moat at Saone. It is a castle in Syria that was 58 feet or 18 meters wide and 85 feet or 26 meters deep, which is remarkable. Here we have entranceway, a single narrow entrance that could allow to attackers that approach only one at a time. Then here we have drawbridge, the wooden bridge that could be raised to cut off access to the gate. Here there are two gatehouse towers. Towers on either side of the gatehouse allow defenders to rain arrows, stones, or boiling water on anyone that attack castle. On this side of this castle we can see postern gate. This side door acted as an emergency exit in case the castle was ever conquered. And here we can see the towers. This castle has 4 corner towers and 1 here in the front of the castle. These circular towers allow defenders to fire arrows in any direction. And here you can see arrow slits. Defenders could fire arrows out from these slits, but attackers could not shoot in through these narrow holes. On these walls, defenders can stand and bombard attackers while they are staying sheltered. When we pass through this entranceway, we come here to gatehouse. The castle entrance was heavily defended. It was often built as a narrow tunnel with wood or iron gates at either end. Holes in the ceiling, so-called murder holes, could be used to pour boiling oil or water on attackers in the tunnel. In this part of the castle was Lord's chambers. The Lord and his family had private rooms in the strongest part of the castle, known as the solar. Here we can see rooms and halls in this part. On the other part of this castle, we can see a great hall, the feasting room where the Lord would hold banquets for his knights and guests. In castles, they have many times also gardens. In these gardens they grew vegetables to eat in case of siege of the castle. They also had blacksmiths, skilled metal workers that provided armor, weapons, and other equipment. During a long siege, when supplies ran low, defenders may have to eat horses, dogs, and even rats. the other side, in some sieges, attackers sometimes launched dead bodies over castle walls, trying to cause disease inside. And here is the weapon they used. It is called trebuchet. Before the invention of gunpowder, castle walls were almost impossible to break into, and invading armies had two options: to batter the walls with his siege engines, or to block all access to the castle in the hope that the people inside would run out of supplies and be forced to surrender before they starved. Also, flaming arrows could be used to set buildings to fire inside the castle. One attacking engine was a siege tower. Soldiers could climb up inside this tower to get on top of castle walls. But if the castle has moat, then it was not possible to do this. Also, the attackers can use battering rams to attack castle. Heavy rams were swung against castle gates to break through. In our case, it was also impossible because of this water channel. Here we can see several types of castles. As time went on, new technologies become available for attack and for defense. Thus, different types of castle were built to match them. Most common in 10th or 11th century was moat and bailey type of castle. Wooden castle was built on a mound surrounded by a fortified enclosure, so-called bailey. It was cheap to build, but it was also vulnerable to attack by battering rams and fire. Most common in 12th and to 15th century was this type of castle with central fortress or keep surrounded by layers of stone walls. The strength of this castle was that it was long-lasting and very hard to break into. But it took a long time to build, and defenders could become trapped inside, vulnerable to cannon fire. This type of castle was most common in 16th to 20th century. It has star forts, and these angles on these star forts deflect cannon fire and allow defenders to fire on enemies from several sides. But then, in later times, they were weak because of modern high explosives that were invented. Interesting part of this castle that we can see on the illustration is this part, dungeon. But it was also a very, very sad place. Prisoners could be locked away underground with no hope or escape. The medieval life was not easy if you were on the wrong side of the battle. If you lose, it was surely very hard. Sometimes the losers were killed by the last man or woman. With this, I will conclude today's